crying on camera is my favorite. It doesn't make me look red and puffy at all.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Fit Curls. My name is Angela. I am a fitness pro and a curly hair enthusiast, and I use this channel most of the time to teach you how to keep your curls in shape. If you're interested in that, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. It would really mean a lot to me, as well as hitting the notification bell so you don't miss a single thing that I upload. I am currently on day 4 curls right now. If you're interested in finding out what products that I used, you can head over to my Instagram, linked in the description box. And if you want to know the exact styling method, that will be coming to the channel very shortly, ideally next week, so please stay tuned. This video, however, has absolutely nothing to do with curly hair. I have recorded this video, I think, twice before, and I deleted both versions. And I really honestly never wanted to feel like I had to upload this. But after 3 weeks of just this little voice in the back of my head being like, dude, you need to share this, it's time. I do need to issue a content and trigger warning here for any of you who are still in the process of healing for any of the following. I am going to be discussing in as much detail as I feel comfortable with my experiences with depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and even suicidal ideation. So if any of that stuff might be potentially triggering to you, please feel free to skip this video. The last thing I want to do is put any of you guys in harm's way by sharing my story. So without further ado, let's talk. Growing up, I had from the outside what would have been considered a very happy and healthy childhood. My parents were very loving and involved. I grew up in a church with a phenomenal kids program. I started dancing when I was young. I really loved it. I thrived in those environments. But from the inside, from my perspective, it actually was extremely traumatic. I used to cry a lot as a kid. I always felt things really, really deeply. And by the time I was 5, I had been told by an adult to stop crying over everything because nobody likes a crybaby. So feeling my feelings began to be attached with a sense of guilt and shame. I was bullied quite a bit in elementary school, even to the point where there was a literal hate club. There was a club in the after-school program at my elementary school called the I Hate Angela Club. And I'm assuming that that led to some serious scarring because by the time I reached middle school, I started developing bouts of insomnia. I would go to bed at 9-10 p.m. and by 3 o'clock in the morning, I would still be wide awake, usually shaking, sobbing, freaking out, counting the hours until I was about to have to wake up and go to school. As a kid, I couldn't understand what was going on, and I very much started blaming myself for everything. I was clearly the reason that nobody liked me. It was my fault that I couldn't sleep. I was doing something wrong, or I wasn't doing enough to fix what my problem was. And those neuroses just kind of kept spinning and building until I started developing the first symptoms of an eating disorder. I started feeling what I now know as incredibly dysmorphic about my body. I was a teeny tiny human being in middle school. I was a size 00, and every time I looked at myself in the mirror, I was convinced that I was huge. So I put myself on a very restrictive diet. But I got so hungry after all the exercise that I was doing in school, after school in my dance classes, that then I would binge and then feel really, really guilty about it and go right back to restricting the next day. So I was locked in this cycle of binging, restricting. And I felt horrible about myself all the time. When you're a tiny person and you develop an eating disorder, there's a lot of, oh, shut up, you're not fat, that gets tossed your way, especially when you're young, your friends are young, and you don't know any better. But that definitely stuck with me because I started feeling like it doesn't matter what I feel, people aren't going to listen to it. I was suffering from tremendous anxiety, crippling perfectionism. I would spend hours after school having panic attack after panic attack, trying to figure out what my teachers wanted from me from my homework, so that way I wouldn't get a bad grade and disappoint my parents and my teachers. I couldn't handle the idea of disappointing anyone. And as a result, all I did was continue to harm myself. I continued to freak out over my eating, cycling between binging from depression and restricting out of extreme fear of developing what I considered to be a fat body type. I didn't have a whole lot of friends in or outside of school. Eventually, dance didn't feel like a safe place for me either, because I was so critical of myself and terrified of alienating others. And oh boy, here we go. By the time I was in 10th or 11th grade, nothing about my life felt good anymore. And I started very seriously wondering if people's lives, the people I loved, if their lives would actually be improved if I was gone. And I'm convinced the only reason that I didn't act on it at the time was because I had actually lost a loved one myself to suicide when I was 6 years old. I knew how much pain that caused me, and I couldn't stomach the idea of causing that kind of pain to other people. So I continued to exist. I kept going. But I was miserable. Sorry, excuse me. By the end of high school, I had decided to get as far away from my hometown as I possibly could, as far away from all of the people that I knew at the time as I possibly could. And I, as a result, moved to a different state and focused on the only thing that I knew I still loved in college, which was dance. College was honestly pretty damn therapeutic for me. Day in and day out, I got better at doing what I love to do, and I got to do it with people that I truly tremendously cared about and still care about to this day with all of my heart. And I had things to look forward to, and I got married, and I danced professionally, and I loved my life. But when you're mentally ill, your circumstances only matter so much. And eventually, it caught up with me. And it caught up with me with a vengeance. I ended up unable to sustain the performer lifestyle, which is very transient, tons of auditions, tons of being rejected, and I couldn't sustain it. And I ended up retiring. Jeez, this still gets me now. I retired from the one thing that had always given me joy. As my career, I gave up. And I gave up being a dancer at 25. And this absolutely crippling view of myself as a failure just attacked me. I had no idea what I was going to do after that. And I felt like I had disappointed everybody who ever believed in me and believed that I could make it professionally by choosing to walk away instead of pushing through when things got hard. And honestly, even now, as you can tell, this is still something that kind of haunts me. By this point, I was able to identify what I was dealing with as depression and anxiety. But that feeling of absolute inadequacy triggered a whole new level of both of those things. I became such a perfectionist about every single avenue of my life that I self-destructed. There was nothing I could do that ever felt like enough. There was no one I could be. There was literally no possibility for me to be satisfied with who I was and what I did. By the summer of 2017, not only was I falling apart, but my marriage was falling apart. And I started very, very vividly picturing exactly how I was going to end my life. Feeling like I had hit what really did finally feel like rock bottom, which apparently I had been searching for years, convinced me when I was in the middle of an absolutely crippling panic attack to open my computer and search for a therapist. I started therapy the next week. And I finally had a space to work through everything I had been feeling for more than half my life, and to start understanding where I had done myself wrong and where others had done me wrong and I had let them. I started seeing improvements in the way that I communicated with my friends. I started seeing improvements in the way that my marriage functioned. And with my husband's help, I finally pushed past my own semi-religious, semi-perfectionistic stigma against taking medication for mental health. And I found myself an amazing psychiatrist, and she put me on the medication that I truly believe has continued to save my life. I rediscovered what happy felt like. And it floored me. I wasn't depressed once. I have major depressive disorder. I didn't get anxious over something. I have generalized anxiety disorder. Unfortunately, mental illness there's not something that they've found a cure for. And there are times still to this day, particularly the last 6 weeks, where that feeling that existing is just too painful kicks in. And it's honestly still really, really hard for me to fight. I've been stuck in that loop of inadequacy and a level of perfectionism that I hadn't dealt with in a really long time. And I did begin ideating suicide again. It is one of the worst feelings in the entire world to feel like you're stuck in a body that you wish would just shut down. I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for anyone. I finally decided to be way more public and open with it. I put on makeup and clothing that felt like everything I was feeling inside. And I took some pictures and I wrote the most painfully honest caption. And with a pit in my stomach, I put it up on Instagram. And the outpouring of support and understanding was mind-blowing. And even more so, I got a flood of comments from other people telling me that they were struggling with the same thing. It was almost a relief. And it reminded me that we don't actually need to go through any of this in isolation. Now, I honestly wish that I could wrap this video up in a tidy little bow and be like, now my problems are all fixed. I feel so much better. Everything in my life is beautiful and you have so much to live for. And I can't do that. I I really, really wish I could for my own sake as well as for y'all's, but that's not possible. Chronic mental illness is an invisible sickness, and it is something that those of us who have it will most likely deal with for the entirety of our lives. And it is an ongoing war, and sometimes the battles do not go in our favor. It's taken a while for me to come to this conclusion, but I am glad that I am still here. I am glad that I am who I am. Scars and all. And I want you to know that as much as I can be, I am here for you guys. And I want you to understand that if you struggle with similar things that I do, that you are not alone. I have linked in the description box what resources are available and what resources I can specifically recommend for any of you who are dealing with depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and eating disorders. Please, if you have the wherewithal to do so, find a way that fits your budget, fits your life, to take care of yourself. For me, later today, that is going to look like taking my dog for a long walk and then taking a bath. I'm going to make sure that I talk to my friends today. And I just want to take a quick moment to specifically shout out the people who have been there for me when I seriously swore that nobody ever would be or could be. So if you guys happen to be watching this right now, Rob, Colleen, Judy, Jenny, Kat, Sabrina, John, Corey, you guys have saved my life. And I love you so much more than I can properly express. So that's it for today's video, you guys. I'm sorry this one was such a downer. I really needed to be honest with you guys about this part of myself so that I can continue to create content that really feels like it came from me. I don't really want to follow up with the usual. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Hitting the thumbs up does in fact support the channel. It might make sure that people who need to hear this kind of open and honest discourse about mental illness and mental health can hear it, can see this video. So if you feel so inclined, please do hit that like button. Please remember to be kind in comments. Feel free to share your stories if you feel comfortable enough to do so. I will read each and every one of them. I am here for you guys as much as I possibly can be. And next week we'll be back to our regularly scheduled, as normal as possible, happy hair content. I love you guys. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you all next time. Bye.